Hello, everyone. Welcome to Roundtable Talks here at CCTV. And today we're going to talk about social media. And I got this idea from when Instagram and Facebook were down for like a whole day. And then there was a lot of discussion and discourse happening everywhere, mostly on Twitter. Everyone flocked to Twitter when those apps were down. And I thought it would be a great topic for our first Roundtable Talk. And before we get to the first question, let's introduce ourselves. I'll go first. My name is Alfonso Mateo. I'm the distribution manager here at CCTV.
I'm Maritza Grooms. I am the assistant director here at CCTV.
I am Ellen Doust. I am the education manager at CCTV.
And I am Sia Rondo. I'm the project manager for digital diversity and inclusion here at CCTV.
Nice long title.
Yeah, mouthful.
So let's start with the most basic question. What do you use social media for mainly, if you use it at all? Who wants to start?
Existential distraction. No, I'm kidding. I use them for different things. So I don't use Twitter at all. But I do have Instagram, I do have Facebook, and I just downloaded TikTok. But I don't produce anything for that. But I only have Facebook because honestly it's to keep in touch with my grandma and like strictly my grandma. I don't have it for any other reason. Maybe Facebook Marketplace is another excuse, but strictly for my grandma. And then Instagram, I don't know, what do we use that for? Self-esteem? Existential dread, like I mentioned before.
Right.
I use TikTok specifically for existential dread. I just want to laugh when I'm on that. But Instagram, I think it's for literally like feedback from other humans. But also I kind of use it for the news.
That's a good perspective. In terms of Instagram, I use it mainly to share what's happening with my personal life and like where I am, what I'm doing, what I did with my friends. Mainly to update like my circle of friends. But in terms of the question, is it important? Probably not. But in terms of, keeping in touch with like my friends all around the world, I mostly use Instagram nowadays. Before it was Facebook, but now it's Instagram because Instagram is mainly for the photos. I rarely put photos on Facebook. I only do it for like my family on Facebook. But in terms of photos that I guess I don't want to say, but like I want to show off to people, like I put it on Instagram. And then Facebook, I use it for communicating with my family back in the Philippines because it's hard to like call them. I'm not gonna buy a prepaid card to like, because that's how they used to do it before Facebook, like before 2009, like you would buy a prepaid phone card, you use that, you dial it, and then I call my dad who was here in Boston and I was still in the Philippines. But now my grandma uses Facebook Messenger to call my aunts and uncles in the Philippines. So there is, that's one of the main pros of Facebook, but I mostly use those two apps for those things. Yeah.
I use social media quite a bit. I will get into how I use it personally, but I use it obviously for work. Well, maybe that's not obvious, but a big part of my job, as you all know, is promoting what we do here. So our programs, our classes, our events. So I'm constantly on socials. But I also use it, and I like the distinction of each channel being used for something differently because that's totally how I used it. And I'm coming from I feel like one of the first generations that were on Facebook way back in the day. And at that time, we were all updating everything all the time, like my pictures, my status. And there was a time where it said, this person is. And so I'd be like, I am. Maritza is thinking about life, like something ridiculous, But eventually it evolved into me using Facebook to kind of like write my own personal think pieces on what was happening in the world. And then it evolved into using it for activism. And I have a couple of things that I like to promote on Facebook where the people on Facebook are like my community people. And so I use it for that a lot. And I also use Facebook Messenger to communicate with my partner who lives in a different state right now. And then on Instagram, I kind of created that to kind of subvert my Facebook personality, and it was for my art. So I like to write like micro poems, and I like to take pictures of trees and nature and random things that catch my eye. So I either will post a picture that I've taken and write like either some lyrics that I feel are, deep and profound, or something that I create. And so that became my outlet for that. And it helped me through a really rough breakup a few years back, a couple of rough breakups actually. And then people found me there, and I was really upset about it because I was like, no, I do not want community to know my inner workings and my inner thoughts. But then that also kind of became a platform for activism in a way. And then I have another account that I use to stay connected to my previous life, the young people that I used to serve. Twitter is the place where I am most anonymous, and I get to just use it as a think space, and I just say what I'm really feeling, but not always, because I don't want other people, strangers, to comment on the things that I say, because it can be like a very hostile place. And TikTok, I definitely have a TikTok very much to escape the world, but then it also became a really great place to learn, and I found out about my own there's this thing that TikTok diagnoses you, and I found out I had ADHD, and then I talked about it with my therapist. Turns out I do. I also found my community. I've seen TikToks where people are like, before I was on here, I was definitely like sure I was heterosexual, and then I got on here and I realized I'm not. And I already knew that about myself, but it like definitely curates your feed into a space of, these are your people, my people. So that's how I use social media, and it is kind of important to me. So yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. I have all the accounts, but I don't use any of them. And I feel like my relationship with social media has weaved in and out, because I too was on Facebook in like 2005. So it's been like a decade now, if not more, right? That I've had that piece of social media. I guess where I stopped using it because, one, I wasn't participating in it, and it felt like voyeuristic just to always be on there but not participating. And I didn't participate because I don't know how to use it. Like, I get really self-conscious about when I post something, what people will think about it, or like maybe not even how many likes, but I think that maybe plays into it. I just feel there's so much like self-consciousness that goes into it, because by its nature, you're like putting yourself out there. And I feel really uncomfortable with that. I also was realizing like how much of my daily life, if I'm walking down, am I thinking about what is on Instagram, or like what I just posted, or like, I just feel like my mind is more not in reality, like this like physical reality, than what's happening. And I'm not sure it's like totally mentally healthy for me to be on social media, but I don't know if there's good parts of it. So that's what I want to get out of the conversations. Like, what is good out of it? What do you use it for? And like, why is it good and why is it bad?
I think in terms of what is good and what is bad, I think it depends on like which social media app you're talking about. I think Facebook, the good for me is if you have a lot of relatives who are not in the United States, you only need Wi-Fi to connect with them, and then you can call them straight from Facebook Messenger. And you can hear their voice, catch up with them. We do it, my grandma and I, we do it pretty much every day to catch up with our family. That's one of the best things I think about Facebook Messenger. I'm sure there are other alternatives out there, probably like WhatsApp, but Facebook is just way more common all around the world. In terms of Instagram, I don't know if I can justify the good with that, because it's all photos. Like, Instagram for me is all photos. Like, no, there's nothing important with it. It's just, I think for me personally, everyone I know has it. They're active in it. So I think it's like the fear of missing out on, oh, what are they up to now? Or yeah, just like not being in the circle. Like it may, like it, I know it sucks, like it sounds like that, but it's like one of the biggest apps that I actively use and to connect with other people, aka my friends, and to post pictures. And then Twitter, like you said, that's where I vent the most because I'm on private, so only like 100 people like follow me, and I just post whatever on Twitter. And is it important? Absolutely not. But when I'm bored, I just open the app and like put what's on my mind. On Facebook, I don't post at all. I just use that mainly for family. That's it. Like I think Facebook is actually the least app that I use out of all the social media apps that are out there. And TikTok is just for scrolling. Like it's a lot of scrolling. So in terms of the good and bad, I don't know. What about you guys?
Well, for me, Facebook has become a bad place. I used to really love it because it's like hyper local, and like I said, that's where a lot of the people that I've made connections with over the years. And you know, after a while, it's like I do not care about this person that I like met in the GSU at BU for like 5 minutes. I don't care about them anymore. So now I'm deleting you. I don't care about, you know, your family or whatever. But then there are people from high school who I wasn't really that close with in high school, but I love to watch them like raise their families. And it's like kind of weird and creepy, but it's also like a good way to stay connected and just see what people are doing. And I get really proud of people when I see like, whoa, like you said you wanted to be a lawyer, now you're a lawyer, that's so cool. Like I get like inspired, but then like, and there's like support. There's support there sometimes from the hyperlocal community, you know, sharing things that are going on in the community. And somehow I became like, I don't know how to say it. I didn't go viral or anything, but I don't even want to say I became a voice. I became a voice that people listened to, and that was a good thing. But then I was canonized and cannibalized, and like I felt like my humanity was ripped from me. And so anything that I say now, everybody's like, what is she gonna say next? And so I'm like, I'm not gonna say anything to you people because you're just gonna rip apart my life and my words, and I don't know how you'll use this against me in the future. And I watched people like tear me down without even knowing who I was and knowing what I really stood for, or like criticizing me in ways that it was like, I'm not even like, there's like a joke I have amongst a group of my friends because they're all founders of their own organizations. And I was like, oh, well, what am I? And they're like, you're a public figure. I'm like, I didn't ask for this life, guys. But that's where Facebook became a public figure space. And so it became really like harmful to me. And I felt like I couldn't be a human anymore. So I'm very selective about what I share there. So it is very much like something good in the community is happening, or like rally for support around this cause. Instagram though, that's where I space out the most. That is where I am a lot of the time, probably too much of the time. I am constantly like just, and I don't care about the people that I follow. I'm on the explore page. And people are like, oh, that really says where your mind is at, your explore page. And it's like, I'm not gonna lie, a whole lot of Beyonce. And then there are like things about reading. There are like my work joke memes. That's where I find those things. And then I like to do my own kind of like anthropological, sociological studies. And I'll share stuff on my story and I'll ask people questions. And I found that like, as I'm sharing things about myself, people can relate to it. And people have come into my DMs like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said this because I would never, but I'm glad that you did because now I feel seen or I feel understood. And that's kind of how I feel about TikTok. These people who are putting themselves out there and who are sharing sometimes like really vulnerable, raw stories about their lives. And sometimes it gets real messy, girl. But then I've also like, you know, found like social justice accounts and like history accounts and things that I'm really interested in, or just food stuff, you know, like I love watching like people make really delicious looking things. This is one guy I follow. He is like, he duets himself with people who are making food. He's like, oh, is that what you're gonna put in there? Oh no, they just put the pepper. And I love that. Like it makes me like excited to like see other people, and then dancing, because I used to be a dancer, so I got a lot of that. But it can be, all of those things can be really, really damaging. Twitter, I don't really have like whether it's good or bad. I like it just exists in my life, and just is. But I do find that there is more good usually, but it has to be intentional. You have to intentionally find the good, I think.
Go for it. I was gonna say, I'm not gonna break down social media based off of platform. Social media is its own ecosystem, and we can't talk about it as individual platforms because they're all contributing to the same issues.
True.
Like I really think that social media is a really powerful tool. It's a hugely important. It's changed society, in every single way. Like there's nothing that we can attribute in the way that we function as a world without somehow connecting it to the way that social media has impacted us as like a living creature, a living organism on this planet together. Yeah. So again, I'm not going to break down my personal perspective of each platform because they're all contributing to the same things. They're all run by the same corporations and figureheads that have largely contributed to the biggest downfalls and pitfalls in the way that we use and handle social media. Like we wouldn't be talking about social media right now if there was nothing wrong with it, but there's so much wrong with it. So that's my perspective on this. I think that it's not able to be fixed. But I think the way that we imagine what it means to fix social media is extremely complex, because that's a question of people's rights. It's a question of people's safety. It's a question of like how much control and autonomy that each individual has. Because right now we have this faux sense, I think, of autonomy and individuality online. But quite frankly, like you're saying with TikTok, we find groups and interest groups. We get siloed into these interest groups. And when we do that, that's where all these problems have come from. Like all the problems that we've seen, I want to say specifically in the past 4 years, since 2016. Like I think 2016 is when we all were like, something is wrong here. Doesn't matter what platform you're on, something is wrong here. I think it's fascinating what's happened. And I think, again, the past 4 years have really highlighted those issues. And my big question is, how do we fix them? Ooh. And I don't know. I couldn't say. Because again, it's questions of rights and identity and individuality.
I feel like the same could be said for any source of media, though. Like any source, like from the beginning of time, like the Bible was one of those first sources of media, and how there were whole wars because of it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's the way that technology evolves and the way that media evolves. It creates an opportunity and challenges. Every ecosystem is going to have both sides, I think, of the same coin. Like, I don't disagree with you, but I think that I think it's bigger than just social media. I think it's society as a whole, and how we're technology is getting ahead of us as a species. And how do we, is there a way to mitigate it? Is there a way to, use it intentionally? Is there a way to, bring it back to community? Could it be used for good? And I think that's a question that we all have posed to ourselves in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we're all here at a community media place, right? And we believe what we're doing is a tool for good, but anybody could come over here and say whatever they want. Free speech is a thing. And so how, is that a bad thing that anybody could have a platform? Or, who decides that?
So do you think because if you look at the advancement of technology and social media, it seems like it's inevitable. It'll just keep getting advanced. Do you think we rely on it too much nowadays? Like in terms of, looking from like a business perspective, almost every single business has to have an Instagram, or else you know, they're gonna have a harder time pulling in customers. And same thing with just promoting anything that needs to be promoted, market anything that needs to be marketed. We need social media. So do we rely on it too much nowadays? If so, what would be our other alternatives other than going door to door and just, you know, putting up flyers and stuff?
Can I just make a point?
Yeah.
Madonna didn't have social media. Like, Madonna became Madonna without social media. So, like, all the structures in which someone can be like an international hotshot star existed well before social media. It's just made it easier. But I'm a personal belief that folks like from our generation have got to stop thinking that if you're not on social media that you cannot make it in whatever you're interested in. I do not believe that's true because, again, Madonna wouldn't be here if that was the case. We wouldn't have a Madonna until Instagram existed, but we had Madonna way before Instagram. So that's where I'm at. I want to see more generations like start to detach self-worth and like mobility to what they can accomplish on social media, or like how fast they can accomplish something on social media. Because I don't think those things are inherently attached. They right now they seem to be, but I don't think they are.
Yeah, no, that is a great perspective. I did not think of that. I think now that it's so easily accessible, I feel like just anyone can go viral and become famous with not a lot of effort. And I feel like that's bringing down the quality of who we look up to. Like all these, I'm not, you know, underestimating all these TikTokers, but like a lot of them are going to the Met Gala and like all these things that before TikTok, you needed to kind of, you know, prove yourself and like accomplish a lot of things before you can even get to these things. But now with just one viral, everyone knows you, everyone likes you, here you go. Here's your golden ticket to like what you want to do and like where you want to go. So I do agree with that perspective that the younger generation should stop kind of clinging to social media in order to achieve their dreams, I guess.
The idea of self-worth and humanity, that's where I am so fascinated by social media. And I'm wondering for all of you, how much of your self-worth do you feel is like intertwined in social media? Like if you were to stop using it tomorrow, dead stop, how would that impact how you view yourself?
I don't know. I've gone on so many hiatuses from social media that I feel completely unfazed by the thought of not having it anymore. Like I haven't posted on my Instagram for almost a year now. The only thing I do is post on my stories, and even then they're usually just like select people. So I don't know. I don't want to say I'm like absolved from the feelings of like self-worth, but I also can say I feel like I very well might be, because I don't really need that neurofeedback that some folks sometimes actually do need, that are like, you know, likes or responses to stories, like people commenting on things. I just take so many hiatuses of desensitize myself to those neurological kicks that we get sometimes.
Unfortunately, I think I come from the opposite perspective, where I'm pretty sure I'm a victim of that other side, where I'm worried about, oh my God, who's liking the photo I just posted? Oh my God, did my crush see the photo that I just posted? Did he like it? Like, it's unfortunate, but I think I fell victim to like that societal, I don't know what it's called, but I am, you know, like in terms of like self-worth, I like to think that I don't need social media to know what my worth is. I know what my worth is, but in terms of, I guess, measuring that, I guess I can't help but look at other people on, say, Instagram, and then look at myself. So like that, comparing yourself to others, and then like, let me reflect about myself and my, you know, what I'm doing in my life, and then how can I make it better? And I don't think it has impacted me negatively, other than worrying about how other people see me. I think I still have a good grasp to know my self-worth, even if all those social media apps disappear tomorrow. Like if it disappears tomorrow, I would be fine. Like I don't post on Instagram like every single day. I just post there when there's an occasion, an event, or if I'm traveling. That's it. I'm not an influencer or anything, and those influencers post every single day. Like that's their life. And actually when Instagram went down, I was like, you know what? It can stay down forever. Like just shut it down. Even Facebook, like I'm totally fine with that. But then I thought, oh, my best friend actually gets her most of her income from posting on Instagram. Like brands would send them products, post a picture with the product, they get paid. So for me to say, oh, you can just shut it down, is me taking away a part of their lifestyle and their income. So it's kind of selfish for me to say that, but also I see both sides. Like, so it's hard. It's like, I think the pros and cons will be there forever. Yeah. It can't be just all pro. There will always be a con, I think. Like what you guys said earlier.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm somewhere between both of you. Like now, there was a period of time where it totally defined my sense of self-worth. And I'm not even ashamed to admit it. When you start saying things and, you know, I'll never forget, like prior to 2016, it was very specifically 2014, I would get embroiled in these wild Facebook battles with people debating what racism is and things like that. And then suddenly there was like, I got this following because it resonated with people what I was saying, and then it got to a point where I was being attacked, and then people were coming out to defend me, and that was the part for me that defined my sense of self-worth. That I realized people cared about what I say, that my words carry weight, and from those things I was able to get opportunities in my life. But now I don't care. I don't care what people have to say about me. And in some ways I want to say I never did, but that would be a lie. It's funny, I had this conversation yesterday about having a strong sense of self, and the person who was telling me this was saying that I've had this, and I had to really think about it because I didn't think I had a strong sense of self for a long time. But it turns out I do, and I know my limits. And I know when to say enough's enough. I personally don't think that I could be like you see. I don't think I could walk away from social media. I'm going to be like super real about it. I'm very addicted to it. And during the height of the panorama, there was a point where I was like, dude, I have just been laying here for hours scrolling through TikTok, and this is a problem. And I realized it was a problem. I had to like mitigate my usage and how much time that I was spending on it, because it was no longer a thing for fun. I was just very like in the weeds with it. And sorry, that noise is really distracting. But in terms of like, that day when it went away, my job is very much tied to social media, and small businesses and organizations, like you said, your friend generates, income from these things. And one of the things that I do here is teaching social media strategy, right? And we talk about it in these classes, and Ellen knows, because at the beginning of some of these classes, I'll be like, so we all know that Facebook is the devil, right? But sometimes you have to use this necessary evil to promote your business. And the trends that we're seeing about if businesses are not on socials, like you said, people aren't knowing about them, and you have to like really rely on word of mouth, peer-to-peer sales, and people will go to your business like, oh, are you on Instagram? Are you on Facebook? Like, people want to know, where are you? Even LinkedIn, like that hasn't even come up in this conversation yet, but that's a form of social media too. Yeah. And it's weird because I find LinkedIn to be one of the most toxic places on social media, to be honest. And I know that is not a shared sentiment, but like, I hate it. I hate it there. It's like, I feel like a wild imposter on LinkedIn. I'm like, I don't know how to promote myself, or like, who the heck am I? I don't know, but all these people are saying like these big fancy words and they sound like they know what they're talking about, but they could be feeling the same way that I'm feeling about being an imposter. But that's probably the place where I don't feel the worst about myself, but I do not want to interact. No, thank you. Keep your LinkedIn, no offense, because I know, like, again, that's not like a shared thing, but
Yeah.
it's not my favorite place. It's my least favorite place on the interwebs.
I think I only used LinkedIn literally because I was told back in college and like leaving high school that I need to start building my LinkedIn profile because professionals look at your LinkedIn profile and then that's where they base a part of their judgment before they hire you. Like that's what I've been told. That's why I'm actively using it. But I can see your perspective too. Like everyone can be feeling the same way as you, but they're just told that they need to show their professional side on this platform, LinkedIn. And who knows, like maybe it doesn't even do anything with your future jobs. Like maybe they don't care about your LinkedIn. Like who knows, but we're told to, so here I am like trying to still build it for future employers. So it's interesting.
I think it's very interesting. LinkedIn is probably the only one I'm active on right now. And I have one buddy that is using LinkedIn for a really bizarre like purpose, and it's either like really unhinged or super smart, but it's essentially like a blog post around like how he plays Zelda and like how it like intersects with being a professional, and it's like really out there stuff. It's like super hilarious stuff too, but I just think like the rules and regulations of how you're supposed to use it, I'm not sure there are rules. I feel like it's like almost like it's a construct, like a social construct of how you use it. So it'd be interesting to experiment with like, if you're gonna use it, like how do you choose to use it? And I guess another question I had for everyone is like, where's the balance between like cutting off completely? Like, is the answer to cut off completely? Maybe that's like the healthiest thing, or like how to engage with it. Where's the balance between that?
That's a good question because I like kind of tying in with this self-worth question and this question, I've been trying to be less conscious of what I post of myself on Instagram, mainly Instagram. Like I'm very picky of like, oh my God, which angle of my face should I post? Like, oh, I don't like this video, let me do it again. Oh, I don't like this picture, let me do it again. Like I want to stop doing that. And so I have a friend who's on Instagram and she turned off all comments on her photos and she turned off the chat option on Instagram. You know, when you post a story and you can swipe up and like type something, she also turned that off. So no one can access her, but she is active. She posts pictures, she posts stories, but no one can say anything about it. And I thought that would be a great start for me to not care about what other people will say about what I post, but I just realized now that that's contradicting because I do care of what they're gonna say because I just turned off the comments. Like I wouldn't turn it off if I didn't care completely. But I mean, I guess that's one way to try and not be self-conscious but still use it and not totally abandon it.
I don't know. I think of social media as an individual tool for everyone, and it's different for everyone. And when I think about the issues I have and the issues I think social media has, those aren't solvable by people just turning it off. Because we turn it off, Donald Trump, for example, we literally kicked him off. That doesn't change the fact that those perspectives exist. He's just making his own social media platforms. Like, it doesn't matter if you delete and go completely off the grid. It's like, if that's the case, we have to delete the entire platform, not individual users. I mean, yeah, there's certain, like Alfonso was saying, like, you're personally, like, I feel too embedded or like too impacted by like the reactions you get on Instagram. But that's like your personal experience, and that's something that you have control over. But like the broader issues that I see, you can't just, there would have to be everyone has to get kicked off. So I'm really interested in like the socio-political side of like this tool and this medium. And I think I'm looking at less as like my own personal perspective, because again, I feel almost no personal connection to it except for like, again, Facebook, my grandma, that's it. But yeah, that's where I'm coming from with this.
So do you think it's how you make, like what you make out of it, like how you use it? Or do you think no matter what, society will impact and influence how you use it? Either way.
Well, I guess it's a question of, are we impacting social media, or is social media impacting us? I don't think we have the answer right now. I don't think that we can clearly say whether or not society is what's shaping social media, or if the way that social media has been designed all along has been the reason why we're here in this moment and how it looks. Like, is it by design, or is it by the user that social media exists exactly how it is right now?
That is like such an interesting question. It's like, I don't know the answer to it.
Because if we look at the essential functions and tools of social media from the very start, like when you first got into Facebook, what did it say it would do for you? Right? It was like, you can add well, before that, MySpace. Like it was for creating an online presence. So I think we get that, right? Like it's always been for creating online presence, like your individuality being imprinted onto the internet. And then from there, they realized that there was like marketing that could happen in that. And so then social media added that on top as a component, because MySpace was theoretically was supposed to be for musicians at first too. Like Bandcamp, MySpace, those are for musicians. Like that was like, yeah, Madonna exists, and now my grungy little punk band can exist too, I guess. Like I can figure it out here. And so I think that social media has always been ahead of humanity. It's always had consumerism and like mass communications and like technology have always been ahead of human function, like human capabilities, like, you know, wrap our minds around these most complex things that we've created with our own hands, right? But I think it's a question, like, what do you think? Did we design this, or did it design us? And like as a user?
My initial thought is maybe it transformed. Like, at first it was designed for us, and then eventually it's now designing us. Like, it just evolved to that. I think that would be my brief answer to that question without thinking about it.
Like, even thinking about pre-MySpace, Zynga, and Blogspot, and things like that. Like, why were we using those? Who were those for? But then when you think about MySpace and like the joke that Tom was everybody's friend, right? And then you think about, why was Facebook created? For like literally a nefarious purpose to like rank women or some crazy nonsense. And you like, it's so funny because as we're having this conversation, I'm like, wow, Tom was everybody's friend. And Zucks totally is not anybody's friend. Like, in the jokes that because you know, we're familiar. But like the way that people, you know, portray him as like this alien lizard man, like, and like even the statement that he made after the whistleblower came out, like it was just so like, you're not listening, dude, at all. And what was that documentary that came out last year when we were all on socials? I can't remember the name of it right now, but like I watched that and I was like, well, they already have all of my information, so what does it matter if I turn it off now? They already have it. My phone has it. Like, I use the internet, they have it. And I'm pretty sure I'm on the list somewhere anyway, because I've always been kind of a rabble-rouser, so oh well, if they're gonna get me, they're gonna get me. Like, they know where I am, they know where I'm at. But like, yeah, you know, the car, like, is like the chicken or the egg question. And then you see like these younger generations and like some of them aspiring to be influencers. Or I remember when I did work with kids, oh, I wanna be a YouTube star. And I'd be like, okay, but what would your content be then? Like, do you know about marketing? Like, do you know how to research things? And like posing these questions that they didn't even think of. Like, exactly. Like, could you do this without a camera? Could you do this? Like, could you give a presentation? Most of them could not even do public speaking, right? Like, so like, yeah, that is such like a good, like, and now what is the responsibility that these entities have to the public? You know, when we're finding out that, you know, fake news and hate speech aren't really being monitored the way that they are, but then there are people who are getting filtered or banned or shadow banned and things like that for actual educational content that just happens to go against the overarching status quo. What is our responsibility to humanity and to ourselves?
These are like existential questions. But before I go to the last question, does anyone have any more questions about social media related? And I guess my last question is sort of related to the questions that you posed, but from the lens of personal use, not business use, not work use. Personal lens, can you live without social media? Any type?
Oh yeah.
Yes, no, explain, or you don't have to explain.
100%. Yes, I think I could. I think I'd probably be the better for it if I never interacted with social media, I think.
You said no.
I'm the same way as Ellen. I couldn't care less about it most of the time. I do it because I'm a terrible reader, so I like to see the news in a couple sentences. Yeah, it's nice to be able to keep in touch with friends who are abroad, but that's why we also have phone numbers. And we have WhatsApp, which is also owned by Facebook. Isn't this crazy? Like, Mark Zuckerberg owns everything. But yeah, I would have no problem being completely off the grid. No problem with it.
I don't know.
It's a question you have to think about more.
It would be. I think it's because of my position as who I am to certain people. I do have like a large following of young people, and I do feel like I have a responsibility to them because they're going to be on it whether or not I'm on it. And I want them to have at least one person out there that they can look up to and say they're doing it right, but at the same time, like, I don't know.
I think if you take out the fact that I use it, you know, to connect with my family outside of the United States, then yes, I can definitely live without social media. I think actually it would be much healthier for myself, and I know a lot of people would be much healthier without social media. But for now, my answer is no, I cannot. I probably cannot, because I need to connect. I don't know. Especially for introverts, like, they thrive through these platforms. You take it out, force them to interact in person, I don't know if that's gonna work for a lot of introverts like myself. So, yeah. And there's no right or wrong answer too. Like, it's really how an individual uses it. And if you don't need the use for it, then yeah, like, you can live without it. But if you need to, then you can't live without it. And I don't think that it's a good or bad thing. So, yeah. Great discussion about social media. Thank you guys for doing this first episode. And we'll brainstorm about next topics, I guess. Thank you.
It was
How
awesome.
many